too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com. This is the home for intelligent black people. So if you're not black and intelligent, you may want to leave. This is not the place for you. I'm not going to take a lot of time here today. I just wanted to, first of all, wish you guys a happy Juneteenth. Today, the day of this recording is June 19th, 2020, which is the Juneteenth holiday. And so I think it's important for us to celebrate our holidays. I really don't care if the federal government recognizes Juneteenth. I recognize Juneteenth, and that's all that matters. We are the federal government in our house. You are the government in your home. You are the government in your life. You decide who your heroes are going to be. You decide when your holidays are going to be. So Malcolm X's birthday is a national holiday in our house. Marcus Garvey's birthday is a national holiday in our house. Harriet Tubman's birthday is a national holiday in our house. Juneteenth is a national holiday in our house. And I don't need the federal government or any white person anywhere to tell me when I can have a holiday, because I'm going to take a holiday when I damn well please. So do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. What's up to you guys on Instagram? My Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins. And also, don't ask me, today we're not going to talk about what's going on in the stock market. If you want to know more about that, I did a report this morning on the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. So if you want to know about black, financial news and commentary from a black perspective, go subscribe, theblackfinancialchannel.com. Now I want to get a little bit political. I talked to Jay Morrison the other day, and Jay has a great template for the creation of a party. I believe he calls it the Black Rights Party. And I told him, you have my full support. I'm behind this. I think it's a great idea. And Dr. Claude Anderson, in his books, Powernomics and Black Labor, White Wealth, has spoken extensively about the need to create a party in our community. Not so much one where we're necessarily trying to run a candidate and get elected, but one where we can at least vote as a block, or have our own votes and decide, who we support and what we believe and things like that. Why is that important? Well, it's very important because, what's going on right now is you have a huge opportunity in the black community, right? A lot of things are happening. That R.I.P. Rayshard Brooks, R.I.P. George Floyd, R.I.P. Breonna Taylor. These individuals did not die in vain. They created an avenue through which many white folks have decided, for whatever reason, that they suddenly have had a moment of clarity about the things they've been doing to black people for 400 years. Is it real? I don't know. Is it sustainable? I don't know. But it's definitely different. It's not what it was before, and I think that's a good thing. So what's been happening now is that white folks are having conversations they weren't willing to have before. For example, conversations about reparations, which are extremely important conversations. They owe us about $14.7 trillion. They owe us. So my question is, when can we expect payment? I'm like the bill collector up in that mug. Like when can we expect payment on that $14.7 trillion? Because we have had to send you to, we've had to sell your debt to the bill collectors because you have not paid. You are refusing to pay, and in white woman tears is not adequate compensation. Public apologies are not adequate compensation. Marching and praying with us is not adequate compensation. A Dr. King dinner every year is not adequate compensation. Symbolism is not adequate compensation. Painting Black Lives Matter on the street, going up to the White House is not adequate compensation. Money is adequate compensation. So we will take money, we will take land, we will take a cashier's check. Whatever form of payment you want to use, we'll accept that, but we're not going to accept anything symbolic. We want substance. Can we agree with that? Type yes in the chat if you understand. Type the word substance. Type the word tangibles. Substance, tangibles. Very, very important. When can we expect payment? Cut the check. That's a good hashtag. Use that hashtag. I had to make that point clear. I'm an economics guy, and money is what moves this world. 2 billion acres of land or something crazy like that was given away to other people, and we never got our cut. We want our cut. We want our share. that's where the conversation will start and finish. At that point, I don't give a shit if you like me or not. I don't care if you think that I'm a good guy or a bad guy. I don't care if you're racist against me or not. Honestly, I don't care about that stuff. I don't care if a white woman looks at me and calls me the N-word. Well, guess what? I'm gonna call you a name too. How about that? Stop the victimhood. Stop that. You're not a victim. You're not a wimp. You're not a nobody. If somebody talks smack about you, you talk smack right back. If somebody hits you, you hit them back. You don't get in the car and cry and tell them, oh my God, it's so... No, you're warrior people. You're strong people, and I need you to be strong for your community. So let's keep going. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Let me read some of this to you. Let's talk for a second about one thing that has to be made clear as we're going through this movement. There's an organization called Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is kind of in the forefront of all of this. And Black Lives Matter is a little bit like what the ADOS movement was. ADOS stood for American Descendants of Slaves. These two movements are two movements that are a little bit problematic because the idea, behind, the symbolic name of, if you will, of the organization is something we can all connect to. So, for example, if you say American Descendants of Slaves, it's like, oh, I'm an American Descendants of Slaves, right? But having the designation is not the same as being part of the organization, right? Because organizations get led by people who sometimes have their own agenda, right? So with ADOS, there was confusion because a lot of people said, oh, I identify as ADOS. But then when they saw what the leadership was doing, the leadership didn't make much sense in terms of their agenda. It just wasn't run properly. It just bad leadership. So a lot of folks began to separate the designation from the organization. Well, I think that when you talk about Black Lives Matter, you have to kind of be able to do the same thing. How many of you, give me a yes or no in the chat right now, how many of you agree that Black Lives Matter? You give me a yes if you believe Black Lives Matter as much or more than white people. Give me a yes if you believe Black Lives Matter, right? I'm going to raise both hands because I definitely believe Black Lives Matter. Even before white people told me that was true, I knew that my life mattered because that's my life. I'm black and it's very important to me, right? So Black Lives Matter is something we can all agree with. That's something we can all relate to. That's something that resonates with... Resonates? Is that the word? Resonates. It's the morning. I ain't had all my coffee yet, so you got to forgive me. I'm going to jack up some words here. Just call it Ebonics or something. Anyway, so it resonates with a lot of us, right? Black Lives Matter. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Woo. Here's the problem. Black Lives Matter is not an organization that was created by black people. Most of you know this. I want to make sure that we reiterate this. George Soros, a liberal white billionaire, created Black Lives Matter, funded Black Lives Matter so that he could galvanize black support under the umbrella of a leftist agenda, right? What does that mean? Doesn't mean it's bad. Some of the ideas are very good ideas. But you must understand the difference between an organization that includes black people versus an organization that is run by black people. You must know the difference between a vehicle that is owned and driven by black people versus a vehicle where black people are, play the role of the front left tire, right? You have to understand the difference between being in a vehicle that black people are controlling versus one where we're in the passenger seat or we're riding in the trunk. Black Lives Matter is an organization that is being driven by the George Soroses, being driven by the leftists, whether it's Antifa or whatever, being driven by the Democratic Party, where black people live in the trunk. Black people we are the front left tire. Some might even say we're the engine because we drive a lot of the politics in America. So I think that while you can certainly respect and appreciate part of the agenda of Black Lives Matter, I don't think that they're necessarily bad. And in fact, I don't have any problem with an agenda that supports the rights for members of the LGBT community to be respected. I don't have any problem with an agenda that supports the rights of women to have all the equality that they deserve. I don't have any problem with an agenda that says that American capitalism is certainly quite abusive to the poor, and we need better safety nets. We need a wealth redistribution. I don't have any problem with any of those things. But I think it's very important to understand the difference between a Black Lives Matter agenda and a black nationalist Malcolm X style agenda. right? A black nationalist agenda says that that's more of the mission that we have in the Black Business School. Black people should educate our own children. We should create our own jobs. We should support our own businesses. We should police our own communities. We should control the politics in our community. That's a very different agenda from what Black Lives Matter is talking about. In fact, a Malcolm X style agenda or a black nationalist agenda, Marcus Garvey-ish, style agenda of black liberation, true black liberation, it kind of just means that we just get to control our own destiny, and we're not going to get caught up in what they call the horizontal issues. Dr. Claude Anderson in Powernomics speaks extensively about horizontal issues, like whether it's feminism or it's immigration issues that may or may not help black people. He actually speaks in a way that explains how immigration was used to dilute and to harm the black community, how they wanted to bring anybody into America except black people so that black people would have less economic power, so black people have less political power, right? So a lot of the issues that are going to be brought to the table by a leftist, Black Lives Matter, George Soros, Democratic Party line of thinking is going to be in complete contradiction, in direct contradiction to what you would pursue with a black nationalist, black power-ish sort of agenda. When you're talking about true community empowerment, true liberation, development of our families, etc., that's not in alignment with a lot of the conversation that you'll see on Black Lives Matter. Right? So what I want to do is I'm going to read, and this is all out in plain sight. The Black Lives Matter is not hiding any of this. Guys, let me back up. They're not. It's not that they're hiding it. They're just putting that shit in the fine print. They're putting it. They're like, it's right there on the Facebook page, but they'll put it at the bottom of the page. So they'll spend, because they want to indoctrinate you into their movement, they'll spend a couple paragraphs saying it's outrageous that black men are being killed by the cops. And you're like, yeah, that's right, it's outrageous. And it's outrageous that racism exists in America. Yeah, that's outrageous, that's outrageous. And then at the very bottom, it's like, oh, by the way, we affirm we are anti hetero supremacy or something. They create words like that, like if you're heterosexual, you think that you're superior to people that are gay. So the Billy Porters of the world are like, yeah, heterosexual black people are bad, right? And then and then they go into this whole thing that is it's interesting. It's almost like we love the black men, or we can identify with black males when they are victims, when they are weak, when they are being abused by the police, but we do not identify with the strong black males who want to lead a family. We want to tell the women, you don't really need these guys because they're filled with toxic masculinity. So the same agenda that appears to be liberating you is really only putting you on life support so they can come in and cut your throat in the middle of the goddamn night, right? The same people that claim that want to keep a George Floyd alive are the same ones who want to send your black son to prison under the Me Too movement because a white girl accused him of rape and has no evidence whatsoever. So you have to be able to understand that you have kind of these dual objectives sort of being placed here, that where they can actually love a George Floyd in one condition and hate a George Floyd in another. If George Floyd were alive and he were doing, some of the things that they don't approve of as a black man, whatever that means, then he becomes the enemy. But when he's being killed by the police, he becomes the ally, right? So let me explain some of this. Let me dig into this. Hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. And also make sure you subscribe. You can go to drboycetv.com. That's the home for intelligent black people. If you're not black and intelligent, I don't want you on my channel. So here's what Black Lives Matter put on their page on blacklivesmatter.com. They have a page called What We Believe, and I'm going to read this as fast as I can. It's a long statement, but it's very important to kind of break this down so we can kind of just know what it is and know what we're signing up for when we get into certain things. The other reason why I want to read this is because you got to understand all this corporate money that corporations are now, allocating to black people isn't really going to black people. It's not going to build independent black schools. It's not going to necessarily build independent black businesses, or it's not going to really sustain and support black families. It's going to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter can pursue whatever agenda they have, right? Which might or might not include black people. It kind of depends. So let me dig into this and explain it, and I'll give you my perspective. This is just my point of view. This does not have to be your point of view. It says 4 years ago, what is now known as Black Lives Matter Global Network began to organize. It started out as a chapter-based, member-led organization whose mission was to build local power and to intervene when violence was inflicted on black communities by the state and vigilantes. In the years since, we've committed to struggling together and to imagining and creating a world free of anti-blackness, where every black person has the social, economic, and political power to thrive. Sounds good so far? Nice, okay. Black Lives Matter began as a call to action in response to state-sanctioned violence and anti-black racism. Our intention from the very beginning was to connect black people from all over the world who have shared desire for justice to act together in their communities. The impetus for that commitment was, and still is, the rampant and deliberate violence inflicted on us by the state. All right, good stuff. All right. Enraged by the death of Trayvon Martin and the subsequent acquittal of his killer, George Zimmerman, and inspired by the 31-day takeover of the Florida State Capitol by Power U and the Dream Defenders, we took to the streets. A year later, we set out together on the Black Lives Matter Freedom Ride to Ferguson in search of justice for Mike Brown and all those who've been torn apart by the state-sanctioned violence and the anti-black racism. For forever change, we returned home and began building the infrastructure for the Black Lives Matter Global Network, which even in its infancy became a political home for many. Sounds good so far, right? Sounds really good. Now, what's interesting though is you must remember that you have to ask yourself this very fundamental, important question. When the George Floyd killing took place, why were there suddenly, tens of thousands of very well-organized white people appearing in black neighborhoods, burning down buildings and throwing bricks through windows, right? Why did this happen? And they're showing up with, gas masks and all kinds of gear, like they're prepared, like they've been ready for this, like they've been waiting on this, right? So you have to understand that this is you're part of a bigger war. That's the point I think is very important to remember as black people, is that you're part of a bigger war. They came ready. So a lot of this is a war that's been going on for over 100 years. This is not something that started with the death of George Floyd. This was a scenario in which the death of George Floyd was a catalyst to allow for an execution of a plan that has been put in place for a very long time. Okay, so Ferguson helped to catalyze. See, I just said the word catalyst. Isn't that funny? And then they say catalyze. Interesting, right? Ferguson helped to catalyze a movement to which we've all helped give life. Organizers who call this network home have ousted anti-black politicians, won critical legislation to benefit black lives, and changed the terms of the debate of blackness around the world. Through movement and relationship building, we have also helped catalyze, there's that word again, other movements and shifted culture with an eye toward the dangerous impacts of anti-blackness. These are the results of our collective efforts. The Black Lives Matter Global Network is as powerful as it is because of our membership, our partners, our supporters, our staff, and you. Our continued commitment to liberation for all black people means we are continuing the work of our ancestors and fighting for our collective freedom because it is our duty. Fascinating, though, that George Soros creates an organization that's using language saying our ancestors, right? The person who pays the bills is going to drive the agenda. Where the resources come from, that's going to have a big play in how things play out. So I find the language really interesting. Let me keep going. Every day we recommit to healing ourselves and each other and co-creating alongside comrade, ally, comrade. That word comrade is a big deal. The word comrade is important because comrade is typically used in the Communist Party movement. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm a person that believes in common fucking sense. That's all I believe in. I don't really give a shit if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If your ideas are good, I'm gonna tell you they're good. If your ideas are stupid, I'm gonna tell you they're stupid. So I don't fall into those boxes because I'm black first. B1. Type hashtag B1 in the chat if you get what I'm saying. And one of the things that occurs is that sometimes as a black man, when you're trying to navigate and understand what it means to have independence, freedom, and empowerment, while at the same time, fighting against, some of the other issues that exist out here in the world, you get confused, right? And so let me tell you about a time where there was an attempt to even confuse me. So one day I got a phone call. I'm friends with Cornel West. I love Dr. Cornel West. Now, mind you, Cornel West is very left. I'm not as far left as that, right? Like, I believe, for example, businesses can be a great thing for a community, and that capitalism isn't always terrible all the time. I think capitalism is not the best system, though, because it can be harmful, but I do think free enterprise and economic development is a very good thing for a country. I don't want everybody to be the same and to be poor, and I don't believe that the lazy motherfucker deserves to get the same shit as the person who worked his ass off. If you and I both grow up in the hood, and I'm busting my ass and studying and working hard smart and saving my money and investing, and you all running around chasing women and throwing your money away on Gucci and Air Jordans, and then yeah, I want to be ahead of you. I don't want us to be in the same place because I don't believe that you should reward lazy motherfuckers. That's just my 2 cents. That's who I am. That's how I was built. I don't apologize for that. Now, here's the thing though, but despite that, I appreciate many of the ideas that come from the left, right? So that's why Cornel West and I love each other very much, and that will never ever change no matter what anybody says. So there was a guy who called me, a white guy, random white guy. Don't know why white people call me. White people are usually afraid of me. They don't talk to me. So I was like, why is this white guy calling me? So the white guy called me and he says, oh, Dr. Cornel West recommended that we reach out to you. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, Cornel, that's my man. So what's going down? How can I help? Right? So he tells me that, he says, we're holding a protest, for the death of Mike Brown. At the time, that's what it was. So I said, okay, yeah, Mike Brown shouldn't have got killed. They shouldn't have shot that brother. That was wrong. So what can I do? Right? So I come to a meeting, and they plan the protest. And I'm like, okay, we plan protest. And then I go to the protest. And while I'm at the protest, here's what's going on. This is what's fascinating. This is where I started understanding and researching the bigger war, right? So while I'm there, they're handing me these communist like newspapers and shit. And I'm like, I don't want to be a communist. I don't hate it. I just don't. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to be black, right? So they're handing me this communist stuff. And then I go to another meeting, and at the meeting there are these really, really ride or die ass white people up in there. I'm talking about like bout it up in that mug, like ready to go to Ferguson and burn shit down, pop a cop if they got to, and I'm sitting here like, wow, these are some really ambitious white people. I've never seen white people like this up close. So because they're fascinating to me. When I distance myself because y'all like to be lynching Negroes and putting them in prison and all that. But when I'm around, I'm just studying, and I must remember I'm a professor, so I'm taking in information. I'm like, wow, that white boy is really like he's really like gangster with his shit. So they're literally like about to get on the bus to go to Ferguson and just blow some shit up. And I'm like, wow, okay, fine. And then a week or two later, I get a call from the guy who brought me in, the friend of Cornel, who is basically telling me, Cornel West is going to have this big debate in New York, and he's going to debate some famous communist guy, and we want to take a bus up there, and we know you got some money, so we'd like for you to donate to pay for the bus. So my reaction is, fuck no. No, I'm not paying for anybody's bus. I'd rather send money to like a cousin or something, or somebody in my community that needs it. I'm not trying to pay for a bus full of white communists to go to New York. That's not interesting to me. And the guy keeps on pressing, and I'm trying to be polite, and I'm like, that's my problem. I'm too nice sometimes. So I'm like, hey, no, that's not. Nah, thank you, I appreciate it. Maybe I give $10 but this dude really wanted like some money, like $25,000 or something for this bus. And I eventually hung up on him. I said, don't call me anymore. Because he kept calling me. So my point in telling that story is, after I saw this and I started researching on how that section of Chicago, right around the University of Chicago, is just a very strong hotspot for very deep left ideas. Communist, socialist, just stuff that Antifa type stuff that I'm not into. I'm not into that. I don't hate it, but I'm not into that. That's what helped me understand. Okay, so I get it now. You were using my respect for Cornel West as an avenue to get in. You're no different from a guy who finds out that some pretty girl that she likes, that she likes to weave basket. She likes basket weaving, so he pretends to be interested in basket weaving because he's really trying to get some ass. That's what they were trying to do. They were basically trying to get some financial ass by basically pretending that we had something in common. And then after that, you start to realize what the agenda actually is. And I wasn't into that because I said, look, I'm here to be black, man. I am black first. And I'm not trying to do all this other shit you got going on. Because I went to a meeting and they're like our comrades, and I'm not stupid. I remember oh, comrade, that's like a term they use a lot in Russia, and that's a communist kind of thing. So I'm just trying to say that you got to be really careful, black people, about being sucked into a bigger war, because bigger wars come with bigger consequences, and they also distract you from your core purpose. One good example that I brought up before is Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh, one of the great leaders of all time in Vietnam's history, was a guy who just wanted Vietnam to be free. The Vietnamese have been controlled by the French for over 100 years, and he was like, we want y'all out of this bitch. And so when World War II started, he saw that as an opportunity for Vietnam to be free, because the French got their ass kicked by the Germans for a little bit in World War II. They just kind of got punked. And so during that time, he was trying to get freedom, and what happened was the communists came along and offered to help him, and that's where the Viet Cong and all that came from. And what occurred, though, was that sometimes when you take support from a bigger group, a bigger cause, you attract bigger enemies, right? So I might live in a neighborhood where I don't want to be a Crip and I don't want to be a Blood, but I want protection. So I go to the Crips and I say, hey, I can use some protection. Well, guess what? I picked up some allies, but I also picked up bigger enemies. Now, because I'm a Crip, you know, this is back in the day, back when the gangster shit was real. Now the Crips and the Bloods, God bless them, they've learned that we're all in the same gang up in this bitch, and we got to be black first, and I'm so happy about that. But back in the 90s, it was real. It was like, okay, now that you're a Crip, now you walk around in your blue, you're a target for anybody who doesn't like the fact that you're wearing blue, right? So black folks have to be cautious about getting involved in what can only be described as the globalized version of gangster shit. You know, the whole thing with the communists and the leftists versus the fascists and, you know, the people on the right, the Donald Trumps and the Republicans or whatever, has been going on for over 100 years. I don't think that is what we're here for. I think that we have to be smarter than Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese were, because what happened in Vietnam was the entire country got destroyed. The entire country got ripped apart. Divide and conquer was the order of the day, where you had Vietnamese families that loved each other killing each other because one had picked one side over the other. Well, black people are in the same boat. You're in the same boat because you got black people taking each other out, hating each other, killing each other digitally, so to speak, metaphorically, because I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican, or you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, or I like Trump and you don't, or I'm a Joe Biden guy and you're not. So I'm unfriending you. I won't talk to you. You're ignorant. Fuck you, right? Because your dumb ass has got caught up in a white man's game. So I'm trying to say that if you're going to get caught up in a game, don't get caught up in the white man's game. Get caught up in the black man's game. Get caught up in the black woman's game. Get caught up in the black first game. Because at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck what your political affiliation is. I do not care if you are a Trump supporter to the end. If you black first, then we are fine. I don't care if you love Joe Biden. If you are black first, as long as that, to me, that's secondary. That's like the difference between grown up stuff and children's stuff. The political party you're in, that's children's stuff to me. That's secondary. That we know that doesn't matter because we've been voting for Democrats forever and it ain't done nothing for our community. We know it don't matter because Candace Owens can talk all day about the wonders of Donald Trump, and she knows at the end of the day she's being used up. She's going to be the next Omarosa in about 5 years. Mark my words, in about 5 years, Candace Owens is going to get booted out by the Trump administration, and she's going to write a tell-all book talking about the racism she endured as Donald Trump's little mistress or whatever the hell she is, right? So what I'm saying to you is at the end of the day, you got to know that you're black first. That's got to be important. If we're going to have a solid community, if we're going to win, we have to know what matters and what doesn't matter. What's our top priority? What's our secondary priority? What is the real shit versus what is the bullshit? So let me keep going. Let me keep reading on this thing on Black Lives Matter. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is TheRealBoyceWatkins. And so anyway, let me keep reading here. Listen to this. This is more. This is on the BlackLivesMatter.com website, and it's under a section called What We Believe. You got to read this. They're not lying to you. They're not necessarily, they're a little deceptive, but they're not entirely deceptive. This information is publicly available, but y'all know we got some black folks that don't want to read. So when you don't read, when you don't learn, when you don't dig into the details, you get played. They say we respect, acknowledge, and celebrate differences and commonalities. This is where they're starting to ease into the other stuff, right? We work vigorously for freedom and justice for black people, and by extension, all people. So Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter too, right? So that's almost what it sounds like. We intentionally build, see, they're easing you into it. Again, like I said, the guy that shows up and pretends like he likes the same things you like so he can get a piece of ass, and slowly but surely as the night goes on, he's like, hey girl, let me pour you a glass of wine. Hey, girl, you look good in those jeans, girl. Let me come sit next to me, girl. Right? He's easing into it. So they're easing into it. They got you all pumped up about, yeah, black people this, black people that. They're easing you into it. Pay attention. We work vigorously for freedom and justice for black people and, by extension, all people. We intentionally build and nurture a beloved community that is bonded together through a beautiful struggle that is restorative, not depleting. We are unapologetically black in our positioning. In affirming that Black Lives Matter, we need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom and justice for ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. So again, they're like, we want it for ourselves, but also we want it for others. We have a black agenda, but we also got this other agenda, right? Let me keep going. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual or perceived. Here you go. Now he's dropping now he done pulled his penis out. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. Tell me, yes or no, does that not sound exactly like the Democratic Party leftist white liberal agenda? Tell me, does that not just like literally like it's coming out of a goddamn textbook sound exactly like somebody on the left would say when they're talking about what white liberals believe? Seriously, let's go down. Let's break this down. 3 statements were made related to sexual and gender identity. Sexual identity, gender expression, right? That's the LGBTQ, that's the alphabet boy agenda, like in a nutshell. Again, don't have an issue with it. I swear to God, there are plenty of people that I know who do whatever they do in the bedroom, love whoever they want. I do not judge you. If you are in that category, just know you are loved in this space. It's just I don't really give a fuck who you're having sex with. That's the Boyce Watkins position. Doesn't mean you have to hide it. Just means I don't necessarily care. Some of y'all might be sleeping with little with 4-year-old chinchillas in your bedroom, and it doesn't matter to me as long as no monkeys are hurt in the expression of your sexuality. Then I'm fine. I don't really care what you do in the bedroom. Some of you might be cheating on your wife. Some of you might be sleeping with a dude. Some of you might be big old freaks having sex with everything that moves. I don't care, right? And I think that goes back to that core idea that I was explaining to you guys. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about this. In order for you to achieve black power, you got to be focused, man. You got to be focused. And the problem is that you're not focused because you get sucked in to all these other issues, these other horizontal issues. You have to be black. Being black just means like, look, I'm black. You're black. I'm wearing a blue shirt. You're wearing a red shirt. That don't mean I got to hate you because you're wearing a red shirt, because the color of our shirt is secondary to the fact that we both got this. We both got melanin. We're fighting the same battle. We want the same things. I'm a man, you're a man, we want strong families, or I'm a man and you're a woman, we want to love and support each other and build unity, right? So a Malcolm X-ish, Marcus Garvey-ish, nationalist-ish agenda is one that says we build strong communities, we build strong families. The father is really important in that family. No, you're not going to have the same thing when you got 2 mommies that when you have a mother and a father. Doesn't mean you can't have that in some communities, but the whole community can't all be trying to have sex with people of the same gender. That just doesn't work. Mathematically, it doesn't add up when it comes to things like reproduction or protecting the community, right? So it doesn't mean we hate you. It just means we love ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're against you. It means that we're for ourselves. And because I'm spending so much time being for me, I ain't got time to necessarily distract myself from my agenda so I can pursue your agenda. That's what I think is important to say. That's how you can express your blackness without it becoming something where you have to be, homophobic or whatever. And then the problem I have with those individuals, though, is they interpret you prioritizing yourself, you prioritizing your blackness to mean, that they have the right to label you. Oh, you're homophobic, or oh, you're hetero. superior, or they have hetero superiority. They like to invent words. Because I read about the history, I was like, wow, these white people are crazy. Like, so I was reading the history of it, and I noticed how they like to invent words and label people, because it's like a type of social engineering. Because if I label you and make you feel like an outcast, then I'm going to force you to get in line. So it's a very fascist kind of way of thinking, like very much anti-freedom, very much anti, freedom of speech and expression just doesn't really apply when you go the further left you go, right? Because what they'll do is they'll take, like, for example, the fact that they would label the whole black church as homophobic, because you got millions of black people that go to church, listen to their pastor, read the Bible, and just don't necessarily agree with a certain lifestyle. Suddenly you're calling millions of black people homophobic. Like, fuck you, man. Seriously, like you ain't nothing but another slave master. Let me be me. Let me live. Let me keep going. Let me read more of this. I'm gonna read. This is a great paragraph here, because this is when they're pulling their penis out. This is when they're letting you know what the real agenda is, and how they're trying to basically make sweet love to you or screw you, depending on how you look at it. We are guided by the fact that all Black lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, right? Again, part of the white liberal agenda, which is fine, which means like poor people, basically, right? Like poor people, we care more about the poor than we care about those dirty rich people. I think that in the black community, we care about poor people too, but we also believe that it's okay for black people to build wealth, right? Not only is it okay, but it is required, it is necessary, right? Because even with the leftists, they can't do all this stuff that they're doing, this organizing that they're doing all over the world, without having somebody funding them to the tune of several $1 million, right? It's ironic, right? On one hand, it's sort of like, we hate rich people are bad, but George Soros, if I'm not mistaken, made his money as a hedge fund manager. He just happens to be a liberal billionaire, and this billionaire built wealth that allowed them to pursue their agenda. So my argument for black folks is to say to you, they're building wealth to pursue their agenda. You got to build wealth to pursue your agenda. If you let them convince you that wealth does not matter, then you are basically allowing yourself to be controlled and pimped by whatever they want to do, because they've built their institutions, they've built their think tanks, they've built their white universities, which pretty much become havens for basically the indoctrination of millions of young people into the core values that they believe. So when I tell you that the Black Business School, our core value, for example, is we believe black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support black businesses, we're basically pretty much doing the same thing that Harvard or Yale University does, where they support, a white liberal agenda, when they tell you that feminism is important. I went to, I had a goddaughter that graduated from Columbia, and I went to Columbia, and I got admitted there for my PhD. I turned them down, though. I went to a different school. But anyway, I went to the graduation speech, and I was listening to the president of the campus speak to the women who graduated from the women's side of Columbia University, called Barnard, right? But she's still a Columbia graduate. She played volleyball at Columbia University and all that. The Obamas went to Columbia as well. And so I was listening to this speech, and it was really interesting. Most campus presidents don't get real political when they give the commencement speech. They keep it real straightforward. Congratulations to the graduates. Good luck to you. Here's how you become successful, right? But she got really political. She got up there and she was like, in Texas, they're taking away a woman's right to choose. And in this state, they're doing this with abortion. Like, it was all about abortion and women's rights and stuff like that. And I said, wow, that's fascinating that she's giving a speech that's so politically driven at a commencement ceremony where everybody in that crowd may not agree with abortion. They may be pro-life. But you know what? She didn't give a shit, because it was their institution. It was their billions of dollars. I mean, Columbia University's endowment's probably, $5, $10, $20 billion or something. Their wealth allowed them to develop an institution that allows them to pursue their agenda. And you know what? I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it at all. I'm telling black people to learn from that. That's how people push forward their agendas, is they build wealth, which allows them to sustain institutions and to pursue a message that fits with the vision of the world that they believe they should see. So the same thing is true here. So you got people like Dr. Claude Anderson, who've written books like Powernomics, who created think tanks like the Harvest Institute. I've created the Black Business School. And what we do is we do the same thing they did at Columbia. We build the institution in the image of the world that we would like to see, where Black people have economic power, where the Black community is not just equal, but above and beyond all other communities, where Black children are nurtured and loved into a position of long-term empowerment. And the difference for you guys is that because you haven't learned to play the game, because you're still unfortunately stuck in a position where you think of the game as a slave as opposed to as an empowered individual or group of people, you don't actually support your institutions, right? So the fact that a white boy from Netflix came in and gave more money to HBCUs than all these Black rappers and billionaire rappers and multimillionaire rappers combined should actually be a signal to you that you're not really ready to play the grown folks game of global economic power. You're not ready for that game, because one of the rules of that game is that you have to be able to build your own shit. That if you want to be a king, you got to learn how to build your own castle. A man will not invite you into his castle and make you the king. That's just not, that's silly. That would be stupid. That would be against his interest. Same thing. If you want an empowered community, you have to be willing to fight for that power. You got to be willing to invest in that power. You got to be willing to plan strategically for that power. And you might actually have to end up dying for that power, right? So I would just say that we have to think about this. So I'm not even really talking about Black Lives Matter from a position of anger. I'm really trying to spit a little bit of game towards you and hopes that you'll understand how this game is played and where power comes from. So let me keep going. This is what they're doing. This is how they're kind of shaping your thinking here. They say, we are guided by the fact that all Black lives matter regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, right? Another part of the liberal agenda, right? The disabled, they tend to lean toward those who are weak and powerless, those who are oppressed, those who maybe are disabled, senior citizens, things like that. And I think that's fine. I think that we should definitely support these ideas. I'm not saying these ideas are bad. So ability or disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, that's religious or atheist, right? Immigration status or location. So immigration status is where you get to this conversation about illegal versus legal immigration. Some people, and it's fine, believe that illegal immigration should not be illegal. They believe that every person who broke into the country and broke federal law to come into the country should be allowed to stay, and we should act as if it's not a big deal. I don't agree with that. Why do I not agree with that? Is it because I hate illegal immigrants and think that they're bad people? No, that's not true at all. It's because I, as a Black man, find that the support of illegal immigration is against my interests, and let me tell you why. And this is why I love Dr. Claude Anderson, because he explains why in detail. Immigration policy in the United States for the last 120 years has been built primarily to dilute economic and political power of Black people. Do you know that 100 years ago, your Black votes and your Black dollars had a much heavier impact on the economy than they do now? Your Black vote does not matter as much anymore because your percentage of the population dropped exhaustively when they let a flood of immigrants into the country. Second of all, when those individuals come from other countries, they do take resources. I'm sorry, the people that act like it doesn't matter and there's no reallocation of resources are full of shit. Because when immigrants would come over from other countries, they would give them land and opportunities, all kinds of stuff, and ignore Black people. Got Black people in the back. You looking like Cinderella or something, right? Where they starving you in the back, but they bringing in guests into the fucking house and feeding them fried chicken and caviar and filet mignon, and you sitting in the back eating the fucking dog food. And then they go to you and they say, well, we should let more people in and feed them well. What do you think? And because you're stupid or trained to be stupid, not that y'all are stupid, but I'm just telling you, sometimes we're a little bit misled. We say, yeah, let more people in. Yeah, feed them good. And you eating dog food and they're eating filet mignon. It doesn't help your interest. Why also am I not in alignment with their thinking on illegal immigration? Well, because I live in a place called Chicago, which is basically called Chirac. Chirac because he has a reputation of young black people being shot up like crazy. The people being shot up in Chicago are not typically white. This is not something that is, there's no equality in the amount of homicide in Chicago. My sister worked in the morgue in Chicago, or in the, wherever they send the dead bodies to, and she did the autopsies, and she said most of her gunshot wound victims were black and brown people. And so one of the things that I found was that in an article in Bloomberg, they explained how illegal immigration through one particular drug cartel that was using the lax immigration laws to bring just tons and tons of drugs into the country. They were going through Chicago as a hub, and a lot of the homicides occurring in black communities were linked to the activities of this particular drug cartel. So me being a black man, loving my own people, not wanting my people to die, asked the obvious question that anybody would ask if they care about their people. The question was, how do we stop those motherfuckers? Like, who's letting them in? What the hell is going on? I see all these guns in the hood. Black people ain't making no guns. We don't have one single gun manufacturer. How the hell did a box of guns just magically appear in the alley? You know, the drugs. We don't have coca leaves here. We don't grow all the illegal drugs in the hood. Where are the drugs coming from, and why is nobody stopping them, right? So here's the thing. My issue, and anybody's issue, whether you're talking about illegal immigration or anything else, is not built on it disliking anybody. It's built on this basic idea that they just don't want you to embrace. And the basic idea is just loving yourself first. That's it. That's it. You ain't got to hurt nobody. You ain't got to attack nobody. You ain't got to be anti-nothing. I don't want to wake up and be anti-anything. I don't want to wake up and hate anybody, because hatred is a heavy burden to carry on your heart. I don't hate you. I'm too busy loving myself. I ain't got time to sit around and be hating on you when I actually want to be loving on my beautiful black woman I got upstairs. I want to be loving on those beautiful children we got in this house. I want to be loving on this amazing community that we have and all the possibilities that exist if we work together and build for the future. That's what I'm doing. If you spend all your energy loving, you don't have a lot of room for hate. So it is patently unfair and disingenuous for people to continuously, and they still do this, to continuously interpret black self-love for some kind of hatred for anybody else. Let's keep going. Let me read more. Let me read more of the Black Lives Matter agenda. I'm reading on blacklivesmatter.com what we believe. I encourage you to analyze the statement. Share this video. If you could, give me a yes in the chat if you can promise me that you're going to take this video and share it with other people, because I want the conversation to be out there. I want it to be honest. So give me a yes in the chat. I need you to promise me right now you're going to take this link and put it on your Facebook, put it on your Twitter, share it to somebody else. I need your help. I need you to be our distribution chain for ideas that won't make it into mainstream media. And the reason they won't make it into mainstream media is not necessarily because they're bad people. It's because they're going to use their media that they built, that with their wealth, to fund their ideas. This is our media built with our wealth that is designed to fund our ideas. So because we don't have as much money as we want to have, I need lots of what white men use in order to build their empires. I need black support. I need black labor. I need all of us as black people to come together and just say, okay, I'm going to do my part to share this link so that we can all be part of this distribution network. So let me keep going. Let me keep reading this to you. I promise you, when I say all this, and if anybody feels offended or anybody feels hurt, my goal is not to be hurtful. My goal is not to be mean. None of that. My goal is to be truthful. So that's why I'm having this conversation today. So let me keep reading here. It says, we make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. That's the next statement, right? So again, he's pulled his penis out now. Now you know his agenda. Now you know why he pretended to enjoy basket weaving so that he can get in your good graces. And now he's telling you what it is, right? So the Black Lives Matter statement, what we believe, it really doesn't get into the heart of why they exist until the second part of the conversation. So they say, we make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. We are self-reflexive and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege. That's privilege for heterosexual people. So this is where they're getting into the deeper part of their agenda. So they're dismantling cisgender privilege. Again, I thought this page was about black people and black independence and building the black community. Sounds like he's doing a lot of talking about other issues, horizontal issues. So to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift black trans folk, especially black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. So remember I told you they're really smart. Like a lot of them like went to like Ivy League schools, and so they're really good at inventing like these really fancy sounding words. Like I never heard the term trans antagonistic violence. It probably was a word that didn't exist in 2012. We build a space that affirms black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered. Well, you know what? I affirm black women. I just a second ago told you how much I love the black woman in my house and how much she loves me. And I told you, and you guys have seen me on many occasions talk about how I don't understand the black men who continuously ignore black women and don't think black women are the most beautiful women in the world. So I too affirm black women, and I too agree that sexism and misogyny are wrong. But what I have an issue with is the way the sentence kind of says we're elevating black women and we want to eliminate the environments in which men are centered. So it means that black women deserve the right to be the center of everything, but black men don't deserve shit. That if George Floyd was not a victim being choked to death on video and was just a strong black man with a strong black woman to his side, he would go from being an ally to being an enemy. He would go from being a symbol of what we love to being a symbol of what we hate. He would go from being someone that we want to protect and save to someone that we want to destroy. And so what I'm trying to sit here and say to you is that that again, if you identify and you separate Black Lives Matter, leftist white liberal agenda in blackface, which is pretty much what it is. Their whole agenda is very similar to what you hear on the left with the Democratic Party. If you separate that from, say, a black nationalist agenda that believes in black independence, educating our own children, creating our own jobs, supporting our own community, supporting the businesses in our community, building strong black families, that's where you have the difference. The difference is that you have the gender war that has been going on for over 100 years. Remember, this was going on when black folks were still in slavery and everything, when we weren't really hip to all these things, right? So you go back to the gender war, where the white feminist in her extreme form, not all of them, but many of them, are literally in a war with the white man. They want to dismantle him, they want to destroy him, they want to remove his penis, right? Seriously, did you know Sigmund Freud, he consulted with corporations to help them learn how to sell more cigarettes to women. The problem with the cigarette industry was, at that time, maybe 100 years ago, they were selling lots of cigarettes to men, and women would not smoke because they didn't see smoking as ladylike. So what Freud did was he helped them understand that if you tie cigarettes to the women's liberation movement, then women will subconsciously see the cigarette as a phallic symbol and see the possession of a cigarette as symbolic of taking away the man's penis, taking away the power of his penis. I'm not making this up. Go Google this. This is true, right? So this has been a gender war that's existed between white men and white women. And maybe the gender war is justified because if you look throughout history, you'll see that white men have treated white women like shit. Like absolute, complete, total shit. Like, what is this stuff? Like, you can't go shopping by yourself. You can't drive a car. You can't vote. Like, I don't agree with any of that. Most black men don't agree with that. And, but here's the thing. In the black community, we don't have that same relationship with each other. We have some men that need to be checked. That's my issue with hip hop. But remember, white folks were driving the emergence of disrespectful hip hop. They were driving, this whole "we don't love them hoes" mindset. They were elevating the black men who disrespected black women. And if you go back in time, you'll know real men never agree with that shit. Real men always said, this is some bullshit. Like, what are you talking about? We don't love these hoes, and women ain't this, and women like we didn't do all that. Black men and black women have always had a relationship that in its best form can be mutually respectful. When I look at my woman, she's a full professor. I brag about that. She's a brilliant lady. I brag about that. She's the boss sometimes. I love that, right? But then when it's time for Big Daddy Boyce to be the boss, she's not going to resist that either. In fact, she wants that. She wants me in the house. She wants me sometimes to take the lead. Sometimes she wants me to take a more masculine role. She wants me taking out the trash. She's not going around pretending like I'm just some sort of trinket or some sort of accessory to her quest for complete total domination of the world, where she can walk in the room and throw her balls on the table and tell everybody that she's as good as a man. Right? Like that's not our community. That's not who we are. So this whole conversation of men against women, I don't think black people agree with that. And I can just say definitely in this space, I see you in there. I see the black women in there, and I love them so much because it is so awesome to be able to live my purpose in public and be black out loud. But I was black out loud before it was popular, right? Be black out loud and have black women cheering me on, as opposed to trying to sneak up and cut my balls off in order to take away my power. I love it when black women say, "Go black man, go," and they want me to roar, and they want me to thump my chest and to be a man, and they respect that. Like, I think that's a beautiful thing about our community, and I think that's something that's okay for us to be proud of and to protect, right? Because when men are really in their best form, we understand that you can be empowered without stepping on women along the way. Your woman does not have to be crushed in order for you to be strong. And in fact, you're weakest when you don't empower women to be their best. When my woman is not, if she was sitting at home, scared to move, scared to do anything, scared to get an education, scared to do whatever, she would not be as effective of a spouse as she is when she can actually give me good counsel, when she can really calm me down and love me, and at the same time, take on the load and help me out sometimes when maybe I'm a little bit tired as a man, right? Like, black men and black women are awesome because we go to war together, right? The best black women. I'm talking about the real men and the real women, because we got those mentally damaged people in our community, and so y'all know what it is, right? But in general, when we're in our best form, what I love, what's beautiful about being black is, like, I feel like you've got these great women that just literally are like absolute soldiers who will go to war with you. I'll give you an example. When I was at University of Kentucky way back in the 90s, I know it's a long time ago, I'm giving away my age, but I don't care. Back in the 90s, we had a protest because I wrote an article in the campus paper, and a black woman named Tanya Clay, I think that was her name, she wrote, or Tanya Brown, one of those two, she wrote a letter in, and she supported my article. And that was different because most of the white kids hated me. University of Kentucky is still pretty racist, and it was very much more racist back then. And anyway, so she wrote this article, this letter in, and two white boys put a knife to her throat. And that became a big deal. That became like the big talk of the campus. The poor girl, she ended up leaving school and everything. It was terrible. But we had a big protest, and we were protesting in front of the one of the big office buildings where everybody passed through at lunchtime. And basically, all the black students, hundreds of us, got together and would just kind of stand up saying, we're not going to tolerate a black woman being attacked like this. Well, the thing about protests is that in the beginning, when it's trendy, when it's cool, everybody's into it, everybody's excited. We even had our little white allies out there, God bless them or whatever, right? But black people were leading this. Black people were the ones who were leading the protest, so it's fine. You can be an ally, like you can be a passenger in the car that we're driving. I don't necessarily always want to be a passenger in the car that you're driving, right? Especially on an issue that matters for our community when it comes to protecting our women. I think black men are supposed to take the lead in that. So anyway, we're doing our protest. Now check this out. So eventually, after about 2 or 3 weeks, we were supposed to protest every day in front of the building at lunchtime. At first, there's tons of people there, and then after a week or two, the numbers drop and drop and drop, and then one day it's like pouring rain, and in front of this building, it was a big building, the wind would blow really fast and the rain's pouring down and the weather was just terrible. Now I was like, damn, I don't really want to go out in this rain, but I'm going to show up because I was one of the figureheads, I was one of the leaders, so I felt like I have to be there, I have to lead by example. Check this out. So remember, we started off, we had hundreds of people that showed up for the original protest. On this day, there were 4 people that came. 4 people that came that day, on the day where there was wind and there was rain and everything else. And do you know that when I got out there, the other 3 people who showed up with me were all black women. All black women. Because they had made a commitment to a purpose and to a cause, and they weren't going to let anything distract them from what they were there to do. And I was so inspired by what I saw. Right? That was one of those moments of clarity where you realize, like, okay, you got some real down-ass, ride-or-die, amazing black women in our community who would literally go to the casket with you to stand up for their man or what they believe in or to protect their family. But then it also infuriated me because the punk-ass men has stayed in their warm little beds and did not come out in the rain to stand next to the women. And so I think about that moment a lot when I think about those people, and I want to give a shout out to the women. You know who you are. You know who you are. The loyal, strong black women. Like, I want to make sure I like you can identify yourselves, and I want to say thank you publicly because I don't think a lot of men are mature enough to really appreciate that when they see it, or maybe some men exploit that and take advantage of that. But I think at the end of the day, I think as a community, that's one of the things that makes us awesome. That's one of the things that makes us unkillable, unstoppable, right? And so to me, when you have people from other spaces, our allies, who are getting in the ears of black women who have been disappointed and saying, well, you know, black men ain't shit. You know that black men are this. You know, black men are that. And creating these little gender wars that are uncalled for in many situations, it's a problem. Like, you know, it doesn't mean that there aren't issues to address, but I believe those issues should be addressed by us. I believe that as a community, we can have those conversations that will make our community better and create a better space so that we're not beating each other up and abusing each other, because we've all been traumatized by slavery and racism. You know, many of us have had our fathers taken away by the Bidens and the Clintons and their crime bills and shit like that. My biological father was in prison for drugs. My little brother, I found out my little brother, his other child was in prison for drugs. Like, this was something that decimated our communities and destroyed us. And I believe that the healing process is not one where others can take advantage of the abuse by sort of leaning into black trauma as a pathway to pursue their own agenda. I think that the healing has to come from us. You know, we got plenty of black therapists in our community that can help us be a little less crazy than we are, right? We got plenty of black people in the community that want to do the right thing. We got plenty of black men that really want to relearn what it means to be a leader and a father of the household in the appropriate way, right? We got plenty of black women who want to heal themselves from the trauma that they've experienced as well, right? So I think that so that is probably my issue with the Black Lives Matter thing. You can go to blacklivesmatter.com and read more. The rest of the document on the whole page, What We Believe, goes deeper into, you know, queer affirmation, gay affirmation, you know, just, you know, hetero. They use the term heteronormative thinking. Again, these are like Ivy League educated white people who invent words every year. They're like, that word probably didn't exist a decade ago, heteronormative, right? And that's what they do. That's one of the things that I think is really hilarious. Like, they kind of think they're better than everybody else and smarter, and our job is to explain to you why you're fucked up and why you need to be like us. And I just reject all of that, right? Not only because I'm smarter than most of them, because I have more education than they do, but also because I think at the end of the day, we have to be the ones to decide what it means to be black. So the same way we were deeply offended, rightfully so, when Joe Biden told Charlemagne that if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. Well, I say the same thing to Black Lives Matter and left-leaning organizations. Stop telling me what it means to be black. If you want to create an organization called Gay Lives Matter or white liberals, you know, on the move, and we also support black people sometimes, that's fine. But when you're hijacking blackness as a pathway and a ticket for you to basically create a black extension of the Democratic Party, well, then I got a problem with you. Then I'm going to have to really challenge you on a lot of what you're saying, because I don't think that it's going to help black people. And it's really distracting us from doing what we really want to do, what we wanted, what our ancestors have wanted for 400 years, which is freedom. Freedom does not mean getting a better pimp. Freedom means being free. Freedom means deactivating, detaching from all of your bullshit, all your left-wing, right-wing bullshit, so that we can go over here and create our real shit. And then maybe at that point, we can come back and reintegrate as a respectable, truly equitable member of the society. But as long as you're trying to co-opt who we are on a regular basis, then we're always going to be frustrated, and it's never going to work. So that's my 2 cents, everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope that this conversation helped you. If you could, give me a commitment, give me a yes in the chat right now to tell me that you're going to share this video. It's really important. I wanted to lay it out. I expected to talk for 10 minutes, but I talked for an hour, and I think it was for a good reason and a good cause. And even if you disagree with anything that I said, don't take offense to it. This is a space where all ideas can be laid on the table. So make sure you subscribe, drboystv.com. That's the home for intelligent black people. And also, because we're building a black movie industry, we're going to have Black Movie Night next week. It's totally free. We're going to watch the film The Black Love Blueprint, all about black love and relationships, directed by Dorian Chandler. So if you'd like to join us, go to blackmovienight.net. That's blackmovienight.net, not .com.net. And you can join us for Black Movie Night for free. So anyway, I'm out of here, guys. Audrine says, how do you share? I think you can just go on Instagram, and you can find the video on your browser on Instagram, and you can share the link. So I think that's how you do it. If you can't, then, you know, that's okay. But if you can do your best, I would really appreciate that. So thank you, guys. Have a good day. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. I'll talk to you soon. Be good. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV.